Hi everybody, I thought I'd put out a very short video, but I think December 17th is most likely the date of the rapture. I 100% believe it, but I'm going to leave it for you guys to test as being Bereans and using discernment. So please do that for yourselves and see if you feel this is correct or not. But if it's not, then I still believe it's during the week of Hanukkah, maybe the great eighth day, which should fall on December 22nd. But anyways, I will make this quick and brief and go from here. So in Haggai, chapter 2, verses 10, 17, 20, and lastly 23, but these three in particular emphasize that the 24th day of the ninth month will be the dedication and alludes to the rapture. You can go back and read Haggai chapter 2. It's a very short chapter, but it doesn't say whether it's Gregorian, Julian, or the Hebrew calendar. So I'm going to interpret it as being both the Gregorian and the Hebrew calendar. So on the Gregorian calendar, the 24th day of the ninth month is September 24th. And on the Hebrew calendar, the 24th day of the ninth month is Kislev 24. And so how you come to that is Kislev 24 is the 84th day on the Hebrew calendar. Tishri has 30 days, the seventh month. The eighth month with its Sheshvan has 30 days also. But Kislev has 31, but it only mentions the 24th day. So 30 plus 30 plus 24 equals 84, thus it being the 84th day. And Enoch, Hanach, which is the stem of Hanukkah, Enoch equals 84 in Hebrew gematria, the same as the number of days to Kislev 24. So if you take September 24th on the Gregorian calendar and you add 84 days, which is both the number of days to Kislev 24 and the Hebrew gematria number for Enoch, you add those 84 days to September 24th, you land up with December 17th, which I believe is Kislev 24. Now there is only one place in the New Testament in which the Feast of Dedication, and Enoch means to dedicate, and Haggai means festival, feast, or festive. So the Feast of Dedication is literally the combination of Haggai and Enoch. And so in John chapter 10, verse 22, so in verse 22 says, now it was the Feast of Dedication, also known as Hanukkah, in Jerusalem, and it was winter, and Jesus walked in the temple of Solomon's porch. So this is the only place in verse 22 of John chapter 10 in the New Testament where the Feast of Dedication is mentioned. And if you scroll down a little bit further in the same chapter, John 10, you will see in verses 28 and 29, and I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall anyone snatch them out of my hand. And if you look up the word snatch, it is actually the word harpazo, or the Strong's G726. And in verse 29 it says, my Father who has given them to me, which is my sheep, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. And again, this word snatch in verse 29 is also harpazo and Strong's G726. So, in other words, to be snatched out or harpazoed. Now, a few verses earlier in John 10, in particular, John 10, verse 7, where it talks about Jesus being the good shepherd, it says, then Jesus said to them again, most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. So it mentions that Jesus is, in fact, the door of the sheep, and the sheep knows his voice. Now, as I just read in John 10, verse 7, where it states that Jesus is the door of the sheep, the fourth Hebrew letter, dalet, also means door. So you can see here that door, the fourth Hebrew letter, dalet, is representative of the door. And in Revelation chapter 1, verses 12, and again in Revelation chapter 2, verse 1. Now, turning our focus to Revelation chapter 1, verses 12, 13, and verse 20, you see in chapter 1 of Revelation, verses 12 and 13, and it says, then I, and this is John the Revelator, or John the Beloved, turned to see the voice that spoke with me, and having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands, and in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the feet, and girded about the chest with a golden band. And you can read all of chapter 1 for yourself, but for the sake of time, because it's already Sunday the 14th, and I want to get this out today. You go down further in Revelation chapter 1, verse 20, it says, the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, which is the one like the Son of Man, or Jesus Christ, the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, and the 7 golden lampstands. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands, which you saw, are the 7 churches. So since Jesus is standing in the midst of the 7 lampstands, that means that he is standing in the 4th position from the left, with the 7 churches among him, being the 7 lampstands, the first 3 being Ephesus, Smyrna, and Pergamos, then Jesus being in the midst, the 4th position, Just like the Dalet equal 4 being the fourth Hebrew letter, Jesus is also in the fourth position as the door. The four remaining churches after the position of Christ is Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. And that's depicted here in the next slide. So here's Jesus standing in the midst of the seven churches, or the seven lampstands, which they represent the seven churches. You have again Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos in the fourth position, which is the door, or the Hebrew letter Dalet. Then you have Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. The seven lampstands represents Hanukkah, which is from December 14th through the 21st. So you see the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, Jesus being in the midst of the lampstands, falls on the 17th, the fourth position over the door, the Dalet, the fourth Hebrew letter, then the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st. So again, for those who like to visualize stuff like myself, Jesus is the door, and the fourth Hebrew letter, Dalet, means door, and Jesus is the door. I am the door of the sheep, and Jesus is standing in the midst of the seven lampstands mentioned in Revelation chapter 1. But that is the midst of the seven lampstands is the fourth position, being the door. And that falls on December 17th of Hanukkah, being from the 14th through the 21st. So in my humble opinion, I believe very strongly, in fact, I believe 100% for myself, but you have to use discernment, test all things. I'm not a prophet, so I see December 17th, which is the midst of the seven lampstands. If Hanukkah falls from December 14th through the 21st, then the midst of that would be the fourth position over, being December 17th, 2025, as the Rapture. And if not that date, then I would say, since John 22 is the only mention of the Feast of Dedication, also known as Hanukkah, in the New Testament, I would say that 10/22 be the great eighth day of Hanukkah and the great gathering. 10/22, where 10 is Deca and 22, then that would be my fallback date if nothing occurs this coming Wednesday on December 17th. So if you're not saved, please take time to get saved, because we only have, if I'm correct, 72 hours, 3 days between now, December 14th, and December 17th for the rapture. So please get saved if you haven't done so. There are so many great videos that cover this far better than I ever could. So please watch them. Tomorrow is not even promised, but if we make it, God willing, to December 17th, it looks very highly like the rapture is going to occur on that day. in my humble opinion. And it says in Joel chapter 2, verse 32, and again in Acts 2, and it shall come to pass that whoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. Not might be, or could be, or may be delivered, but shall be delivered. 100% guaranteed. So anyways, I hope this video has been a blessing. I was talking even slower than my last video as I still have this cold going on, which is kind of in my chest now, and but I wanted to put it out sick or well just the same, because the time is ever so short as I just presented. So again, please get saved, and on whichever date it falls on, if it's not December 17th, many of us brethren believe that it's during the Feast of Hanukkah, which is from the 14th through the 21st, and the great eighth day being on December 22nd, that it's going to occur starting from today through the next 7 to 8 days, but I believe more highly in the midst of those 7 days on December 14th. So again, please call on the name of the Lord, and you shall be saved or delivered. Anyways, I hope again this has been a blessing, and I shall see you in the air if that is in fact the case, and have a blessed day. Take care.